sleeping in my mind. Memories like phantoms die, approaching doors, extending hands. Turn the knob and what do I find? Only a stark emptiness. Nothing here now. No future mine, but no past behind. I'm just another empty shell. Death of the mind, no one beside. Perhaps this is my own hell. Do not ask me to remember. Don't try to make me understand. Let me rest and know you're with me. Kiss my cheek and hold my hand. I'm so confused and I'm so lost.
His love, his dreams, gone. Who are we without our memory?
A young man passed by here today, said good to see you. He seemed so kind. The more we spoke, he told me of his father. The boy was confused, called me dad, left in falling tears. I don't understand why he's so sad. Makes me want to run away. In fact, I just want to fly away. I still want to fly away.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm all right. How about yourself?
I'm not too bad. Thank you for joining me today. I've been really excited to talk to you. So I was just listening to your album and well, I was listening to two of your albums actually. I was listening to your solo project, The Reticent, and then I was listening to um I I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Xael?
Xael, yeah.
Xael, okay. I wasn't sure, but yeah, they're both fucking killer albums, dude. Like you're fucking talented as shit, and you don't mind me saying so, you have quite the lovely singing voice. You
Oh,
sound your
thank you.
solo project sounded a lot like Opeth, and you
Mhm.
actually sound pretty fucking close to Mikkel, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that has been a positive and a negative about my singing voice is that we get compared to them a fair amount, and I like that kind of progressive dynamic writing, and not a lot of people outside of Opeth do that. So,
Right.
but, that's actually what's cool about Xael is that when uh, when Josh asked me to be in it, um, I thought it might be he liked my cleans, and so he wanted me to contribute cleans as well as doing guitar and writing and stuff. And I thought it might be cool to kind of push myself to do more of like a full like ICS Vortex style, like really get as big as possible. And so that's been very fun. I actually just yesterday submitted an audition to sing for another band, so I can't say anything yet, but I
Damn.
might be doing yet another one, and that's also that's going to be more gritty, so that'd be yet another thing to do. But
Okay,
that's fun.
so is that going to be more like progressive like you're doing now, or is it going to be more symphonic, or because I'm sorry, say it again. Xael?
Xael, yeah.
Xael, I will get this right. Xael is more kind of like a death metal with symphonic overtones or
Yes.
orchestral overtones, which I really
Mhm.
enjoyed. I enjoyed that album very much. And it kind of reminded me of like Septic Flesh a little bit. I don't know if that's your influence at all with any of you guys, but that's kind of like what I got from the death metal / clean vocal dynamic, and then like the
Mhm.
orchestra in the background, which I thought was pretty cool.
It's what's interesting is like I just gotten together with two of the guys from Xael. We had kind of like an informal little jam session, um, and just started writing some new material. And when we got done, I was playing these riffs, and Josh and I were kind of vibing on some stuff, just trying some things out. And he and the singer, they were both like, "Man, it sounds like Septic Flesh." And so I'm like, "Oh, all right, well, I guess that's a fair comparison." But no, that's the fun thing about the band actually is that everybody has these really divergent influences, and everybody comes together. It's that was Josh Ward. It was his conception, um, and but I mean, like you have everybody coming from a very different background. Uh, because like Brad plays with Nile, and he's got this technical background, but he's done so much of that. He's really ready to do something very different. Um, and Josh and I both like a lot of stuff outside of metal, so we bring a lot of that melodic and symphonic element to it because we listen to a lot of stuff that isn't metal and inject that into it. Um, so that's really very fun to do. But now that we've kind of got ourselves squared away, we've already started talking about like what our next EP is going to be and where the story is going to go and all this kind of stuff. And we threw this album together fairly fast, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, it was written very hastily. In fact, a lot of it was written remotely. Like I
Oh
wrote
shit.
some. There's a song called "Dark World Mirrors," and I wrote a bunch of those riffs like from this room, and I filmed myself playing them, and I sent them to the guys. And that's kind of like how the song got written. We was just like throwing riffs, kind of like a ping pong ball in
Yeah.
the pandemic. Um, and then we just kind of got together at Josh's place to like record stuff like that. And that was it was odd. And believe it or not, a lot of my clean vocal moments were improvised. Um, we just sort of said like, oh, let's put Chris right here. What should we do? So I just listened and I just kind of make up some melodies and oh, you know what, we could put a harmony with that, and there it is. which is, it's the complete opposite of the way that I worked with the Reticent. With Reticent, I would take years kind of crafting the stuff, and I want it to be absolutely perfect and all this kind of stuff. And so it's really fun kind of doing those two things. But I'm really pleased people are digging on Xael, and we just landed a short little tour. We're going to be opening for Bloodbath next year,
Nice.
in May. Actually, I don't know if I'm supposed to announce that or not, but I did.
Okay.
So whatever.
Well, we
It's
can't.
fun.
I can always edit it out later.
I don't think they're going to care.
Okay, cool.
It's fine, but yeah, so that'll be cool, and we'll do a little bit of US into Canada, which will be very fun. And then I think we're going to try to, we talked about trying to do a Reticent Xael little run of shows, which would be taxing on me, but it would be kind of fun because those two projects are so different. But those are the kind of shows I love. I love when you have a wide variety of stuff, just very, very different bands, all on the same bill.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's I'm really glad you enjoyed Xael, and hopefully some other people will check that out, and the Reticent.
I'm surprised that was written hastily, because honestly, it was like really good production value and it sounded like really put together. So, I mean, that just kind of speaks to how talented you guys are and how well you work as a group. You know what I mean? So that's pretty cool. Isn't
Yeah.
Reticent a solo project though?
Yeah.
So you would just like, if you're going to do both of them live, you would just have like
I
live session musicians for that.
Well, I have members that have become like dedicated live members. The difference in the Reticent, whereas like for Xael, like Josh did so much of the labor, he'll never take as much credit as he should for all the work he does, because it really is his baby, and he engineered it.
Okay.
So I mean, he really did quite a lot. But one reason like he and I work so well together, and I think one reason he brought me into Xael was that was a personal passion project for him, and it was coming from an emotional place for him. And I really resonate with that kind of thing. And the Reticent is kind of like that for me. I dealt with all these really traumatic things and terrible things through that, and that's, music was the way I coped with it. And I would get so meticulous about the stuff, and I would hear every part in my head. You could say I have all these instruments here, and so I would write all the parts and play them all. And I wanted to be really specific on the record, because like it needs to be this crash cymbal at this moment for this particular reason. It needs to be this note for this particular reason. It needs to sound like this for this reason. It's very intentional.
Mhm.
Like with the last two records, with On the Eve of Goodbye and Oubliette, they're concept driven, they're story driven, parts of my past. And so because they're so personal, I kind of have this sort of very specific vision of what it should be. And the last record, Oubliette, was the first time I brought somebody in that really played on a lot of stuff, and that was James Nelson, my lead guitarist,
Mhm.
who's a far better guitarist than me. He's the best guitar player I know. I don't know anybody better than him.
Nice.
He's amazing, and we work really well together. We play very well together, and he was able to contribute things that really enhance the vision. So I think kind of moving forward, it's not just going to be me only, even though like most of the writing happens kind of in that vacuum.
Right.
Because I'm already working on the next EP. Actually, I sent Jamie King, my producer, kind of like the layout of like, here's the concept, and here's what it's going to be about, and here's how I'm going to do it. And I'm only writing it when I can't sleep. So I want my brain to be on like a weird wavelength when I'm writing. So I'll only write if I'm suffering from insomnia. I'll get up out of bed and then I'll go sit down. I'll write, or I'll write lyrics or whatever, but I won't do it when I'm clear-headed.
Why won't you do it when you're clear-headed? Because you don't feel like you'd have the same type of musical inspiration?
Well, for this particular concept, which I guess, it's okay if I talk about it, but I want to kind of, one of the main central themes is sort of like sleep deprivation and the consequences of that, mentally, what happens to you when you don't sleep for a long time. I suffer from very bad insomnia. And so I had this EP idea because I couldn't sleep. I would go so long without sleep, I would get sick. And I thought, that might be an interesting thing to explore. And so I started researching the neurology of it, the different brainwave patterns that occur when we're trying to go to sleep, when we do sleep. And I thought, when I recorded On the Eve of a Goodbye, I was in the grip of a lot of loss even then, even though it was several years from Eve's passing. You could hear on songs like Funeral for a Firefly where I just kind of broke down. It's very honest, and I'm trying to unburden myself. Same thing with Oubliette. Like, Alzheimer's touched me, not me personally, but family and all that stuff. And I've been an advocate for that kind of thing. At a school I taught at, I tried to get them to be an Alive Inside pilot school for the Alive Inside Foundation. And so there's a certain honesty, I think, that's in that band that I want to stay true to. And so, what occurred to me was, like, if I wanted to capture sleeplessness and the nausea that comes from those nagging thoughts that just keep you up, and you're hot but you're cold, you can't, you don't want to move, you're too tired to get up, you're too wound up to sleep, like all these contrary states of mind and body. And I thought I really need to not be in my right mind. I need to not be thinking, oh, well, I'm well rested and I can think about all the different nuances and the different harmonic things we can do here, and melodic things and rhythmic things. It needs to be far more just primal stream of consciousness kind of style thing. And I think that might also just make it a really unique thing among what I've put out. And hopefully that will resonate with people still. But again, it's just wanting to keep this as honest as possible. And I thought that might be a way to capture, like, what is the exhausted insomniac mind sound like? What does the exhausted insomniac mind come up with? If you were so tired that you felt like you were gonna, get sick, and you put a guitar in your hands, what would you write? And so I've come up with very strange things. The first track is very similar to some of the things I've done, but as it goes on, like, it's gotten very weird, avant-garde, like mixing almost like, I don't know, let's take this Dillinger Escape Plan kind of just, this craziness with this droning neurosis post-metal kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then with, out of nowhere, let's have this big organ, and like quote Carl Husa's some of his works or something like that. I mean, just so quoting symphonic wind literature, and then let's have this like weird aside, like some sort of like neo soul thing out of nowhere, and then go back into this blast beat chaos, like grindy Marduk-esque black metal thing that goes back into the Dillinger stuff, like just very, very odd kinds of things. And then like the next tune is just very doomy, acoustic, and pretty and sad, like,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the reason I'm doing that, is just to be as honest as possible, to be well, I guess the word is like authentic.
Yeah.
And
Fuck, man, that's fucking really deep. Like, I don't know a lot of musicians that I've talked to so far, at least, that have gone to such great lengths to like capture the integrity of the fucking human spirit while it's suffering, you know what I mean? Like, I get chills just thinking about that. I think that's fucking admirable and beautiful, and the album is absolutely gorgeous, and you guys should totally fucking check it out.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, seriously. I felt like so honored to talk to you. Fuck, you're fascinating. This is why I wanted to do this. This is why I want to do this, because so many people that create such beautiful artistic music are just there's so much behind it, just like I'm talking to you right now. Like, I would have never guessed that there was so much behind what you write. Like you, your soul is like a fucking ocean, you know what I mean? And you're capturing it sonically, and that's fucking beautiful.
I'm honored. I don't know that I have as much depth as all that, but I'm very grateful.
Well, that's what that's just what I'm picking up. That's just the way that I'm perceiving you from, the conversations that we've had. I mean, it's only been a few, but I can tell that you're, highly intelligent and deep and obviously very talented. So I was, and I always see your posts on Facebook that are very honest about your mental health struggles. And I try to reach out to people that I know are going to be interested in talking about that, because I mean, let's be honest, a lot of people can be just superficial and skin deep and don't really give a fuck about anything with depth or emotional resonance, So when I saw, it was like almost instantly that we became friends, you kind of stood out, and I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to this guy, see if he's into it, maybe not. And then I had mentioned that a lot of people are like afraid to be vulnerable. And I think I totally understand where they're coming from. It is scary if you're not used to doing it. If all your life you have felt like you have nobody to talk to, I totally understand. Like, why the fuck would you want to put your shit out there to talk to some stranger on the internet? Like, I get it. It's not for everybody. So thank you for having the courage to like be vulnerable and be honest about your struggles. Can we talk a little bit about like what you struggle with besides insomnia? Like, do you struggle with depression? What other mental health issues plague you?
So if we want to get clinical about things, I have a condition called major depressive disorder, as well as generalized anxiety disorder, and these things afflict people to various degrees. There's a kind of swath of criteria that one could be diagnosed, with. And when I was diagnosed, it was kind of like I almost ticked every box that was possible. I have to fight a lot to be who a lot of people think I am. And I decided not all that long ago, maybe a year or two ago. So you're not all that late to the party. I decided that I wanted my social media to be just remarkably honest. And if I was going through stuff, I would just say it. And what I wanted to do was kind of like what I've done with music, which, I mean, I'm this underground artist. So I mean, most people don't know who I am, but I wanted to be able to send up a signal flare to people to let them know that they're not alone. Someone else feels this. Someone else is going through this. And I'll take the ridicule or the consequence or whatever, and maybe you can just say me too, or you can just say, maybe you just like it or something like that, and you can just be like, okay, well, I feel that, or something like that, And so part of my day job, I mean, I'm a teacher by day. I've been a teacher for several years, actually over a decade, which makes me feel very old. But my students knew me as a confident leader. I mean, I taught bands and wind ensembles, marching bands, competitive groups, jazz groups, all this kind of stuff. And I was always the guy with the plan. And when they doubted, they didn't believe, they felt all was ashes, or I had to be the one. Nope, you're gonna make it. This is gonna be fine. We're gonna get there. Get up, let's go. Now, for many of them, it was a revelation when, because I was still teaching when On the Eve of Goodbye came out. Mm-hmm. And many of them listened to that record. And it was really weird for them to hear this guy that they knew of as just large in charge, always confident, crying on an album. And some of them saw me live, and I'd do the same thing. There was a long period of time when I went several years where I wouldn't say Eve's name. And then there was a period of time where if I talked about her, I'd, break down, all this kind of stuff. And kind of like I was talking about a little bit ago with that authenticity thing, if you came to see a Reticent show, as some of my students did, I feel like the live show should be an overwhelming experience. I want you to be, I mean, that is the only word I can think of. I want you to be overwhelmed. So I would always ask the club or the venue if we could be as dark as possible. Please, like, I was like, I don't want people to look at me like, which, I mean, some of that is just sort of like, I don't like being photographed. I don't like any of that kind of stuff. Like I'm one of those people who's like, look, I know what I look like. I don't want to be reminded. Just, let's put the spotlight somewhere else. Don't show my face. But it was kind of more than that, where it was kind of a joke for a while. Like that's what it was. Just like, oh, we're just too ugly to be seen. But actually it was I want the audience to kind of be with us in the moment. I would cut these movies together, and kind of like, I know Neurosis did it for a while. They didn't do exactly this. And many bands have since like made use of like visual media.
Yeah.
But I would cut together these narrative videos, and eventually we started using audio between songs of suicide survivors, parents who've lost children, doctors, that kind of stuff. And we'd play these shows when we're playing shows in support of Eve. That was actually the point, right there around like from 2015 all the way up to like 2019, that whole area of time when we did shows. That was when it became a thing, at least around here, because we were always going to go like do some tour thing, and then it never worked out. And we had like a revolving door of members for a while. So like, it's amazing that the album hasn't found any kind of international audience with how little we were able to do. But we became known as this band that you don't clap for. So we'd play these shows, and we play with like death metal bands, black metal bands, whatever. That's actually how I got hooked up with Josh from Xael. He was in a band called Refume as well, and he asked the Reticent to play on that, and he watched us play, and he was like, I'd never seen anything like that. And the thing is, like, I don't talk to the audience. We start the show, it starts with newscasts about suicide. The video's going, and we play our first couple songs, song called Girl Broken, all this kind of stuff. We go through them, and the songs, if you listen to the album, the songs get slower and darker as it goes on. And what you see on the screen gets worse and worse and worse. Starts out kind of just esoteric, but it starts to get a little bit more serious, and all those kinds of things. And in between songs, it wasn't trying to be rude. I would never say thank you. I would never say like, what's up, San Antonio? Like I wouldn't do any of that stuff.
Right. You're staying in character and keeping the emotion.
Yeah. And I told the guy every time before we played, I would pull the guys together and try to get us in the right frame of mind. And it'd be a thing to where, I told them, I said, when we play, it shouldn't matter if there's one person there or 5,000. It doesn't matter.
Fuck yeah.
We're not playing it for entertainment. We should be purging something. If we don't hurt during this, then we just cheated all of them out of their money. Fuck. So we better hurt while this is happening. We need to go to that place, and we need to feel it, and we need to get in touch with that thing. And so, many people talk about they could see it on my face even before the end of the shows, but like by the end of the shows, I got tears, rolling down my cheeks. Some of the other guys do. You can hear it in my voice. My voice is breaking as I'm screaming and all this kind of stuff.
Dude, I want to cry just thinking about it. Like,
and the place would be dead silent. And I can remember every time between the song The Decision and The Day After. I've only ever played Funeral for a Firefly once, and I'm never going to play it again. But we would play a song called The Decision and The Day After. And I can always remember after Decision ends with this really grindy stuff, and then we just suddenly stop all at once. Like we time it very well and cut off. In the movie, we had to start playing to a click so we could time it so the movie cuts off right at the same time, so everything goes black at the same time.
Fuck.
And I can remember very distinctly after that, and I remember the sample I would play between that was this father talking about losing his son, and there's no music with it. It's just it's just very intimate guy, and you can hear him fighting the tears as he's talking about it. You don't have to see him. And I'd be getting ready to play Day After and all this kind of stuff. And I just remember at those shows, especially like the Cedar Release show and all this stuff, like you can just hear a pin drop, and there'd just be all these people, you know, people in Cannibal Corpse and Burzum shirts and all these tough looking people and just dead silent. And, you know, then I could play, you know, I could almost whisper the vocals and you could hear them. And it was just an interesting kind of thing. So I noticed that when we started doing that and I started saying, I'm just going to go out there and hurt in front of all these people. Now I would close my eyes. It's very difficult to do that and look people in the eyes. So if you ever came to see us, I'm not going to look at you. You can stand right up front and stare right at me. I will not make eye contact with you. I'm going to a different place. I'm not at this club. I'm somewhere else. And so, but I noticed after a while of playing those shows, I would have these people come up to me afterwards. And again, I mean, it's not like we're somebody. It's not like we're not any name, but these people would say like they'd seen us a couple of times or they'd never seen us before. And some of these people come up to me crying. Some of these people come up to me and say, you know, I've been through this. I'm going through this. I didn't want to live this morning, all this kind of stuff. And there was a show a couple years ago. The morning of the show, I had actually sat in my truck and I had a 45 right next to me. I was like, this is it. Yeah, I'm done. I'm out. And I was ready. I was like bracing myself. I was even doing like, I was just taking these breaths. You know, I was like, okay, I'm just going to breathe in, breathe out on 3, and then we're done. And my sense of obligation kind of won over, and it ties back to my students. I thought about my students. I knew some of them were going to come to the show or whatever. So well, people are counting on me to do something. So I don't like letting people down. So I'm going to go take care of that. So put the gun back in the compartment. I went and played the show. During the show, I had, you know, almost like a breakdown during playing the stuff. And I remember James, like I say, he's my lead guitarist, and now kind of like my partner in crime with the Reticent. He actually was like a hired gun for a while, and then like he felt the emotion of those live shows and said, I need to be a part of this. Mitch was the same way. My drummer Mitch, he's the same way. He was just someone I hired to do a couple shows as a session guy, and he said like, there's something about this that really moves me, and I want to stay a part of this. I've never felt that at a show. I've never felt that kind of energy. And so I remember I got done playing day after. It was a terrible run. And actually I think the video kept going, and I just like confessed to the crowd like then, like, and it was a weird thing because I don't talk. And I confessed to the crowd, like I said, you know what, I wasn't gonna be here today because I was gonna die this morning. And I'm here now because of these people here and all this stuff. And, you know, I want you to know that if you're struggling, I'm here for you, and I want you to talk to me. And I understand, and just making it to tomorrow, that's a huge victory. That's a big step, and all this stuff. And I'm crying, everybody's crying, all stuff. And we get done with day after, and James comes up to me like on stage. I think somebody else was supposed to come on stage and play, and like James just immediately went up and like hugged me and like gave me this long embrace, like just didn't let go. And it was a really deep moment. And, you know, I love this guy, and he'd seen me, and he was actually at my house when all sorts of terrible stuff happened and everything. So he knew that I was really having a tough time. But people talked to me all at that show, and people said it meant a lot to them that I shared that with them. It meant a lot to them that I was vulnerable like that. It meant a lot to them that I confessed that to them, and that they saw that. And many of them kind of hurt along with me. And, you know, there was one guy who's actually come to see us several times since then. He's told me since then that like I saved his life or something like that, like at a show doing that kind of thing. And I do not feel comfortable taking any credit for that thing because he saved his life. I did not, but you know, it's really moving that he, you know, felt that kind of connection. And the fact that some of these people have seen us over time really meant a lot to me. Like we only played a couple shows in support of Oubliette before the world ended. and we had switched over completely to Alzheimer's and all this kind of stuff. We were playing this place called Motorco, a wonderful venue. I love that venue. And this girl came up to me after the show, and she said, you know, you're one of my favorite bands. And I've listened to you since Eve, and Eve is one of my favorite albums of all time. And I knew I wanted to come see you tonight. And if I came to see you, I wanted to be able to talk to you. I wanted to talk to you and to be able to tell you, like, I haven't cut myself in 10 months. And, you know, I'm proud of myself and whatever, and all these kinds of things. And I, you know, high-fived her, and I was like, man, that's wonderful. And it meant a lot to me that she wanted to share that with me. She didn't want to come up and say, you know, oh, you're so great, or this. It was, I've made a positive change. I've been able to help myself. And if in some way me kind of sharing the dark side of what I go through reminds people that they're not alone, and that you can work through it. It's okay to feel it. It's okay to even think it, but you can then move forward. That's what I think people need to understand. You're not broken. You're not a bad person, because that doesn't make you weak. And that's one thing that, you know, some circles I've run in before, like, have had such a dismissive and like tough guy bullshit attitude towards this thing of just, you know, so we kids would say, hey, fuck a pussy, hey, pussy, you could, and it's just like, there you go. That, yeah, that's very helpful. And it's sort of like, you know, and it's at the same time saying, like, you listen to suicidal black metal,
Right.
so you can't have it both ways, dude. You can't listen to some of that stuff, or even stuff that's not like, you know, DSBM, but like Carrick Angren, the Bidetorik Mich, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, there's plenty of stuff that doesn't necessarily, I'm not going to say glorifies suicide, but like references it, or references the pain people go through, and people wear the t-shirts,
Right.
but then they'll deride it as, well, you're weak, or you're this or that or the other thing, and
That's
or you're trying to get
disposable.
attention, or this, that, or the other thing. And you know, I don't so much like that. And I mean, you know, to be fair, like, I got a little bit of that, like with the Reticent. Like, we play some shows where there'd be some, like, a couple hecklers in the back who just, you know, like, okay, like, and other
Fuck
epithets and
those
stuff.
guys.
And it was, you know, I remember I had a friend who was a bartender at this club, and she got pissed. And she told them, she took their beers from them, and she was like, get the fuck out of here right now.
Good. Good
And
friend.
it's just sort of, you know, like, to some people, and that's the thing, like, some people can't take what we do. And like, I totally understand that. Like, even with Oubliette, which is about Alzheimer's disease, we played this show at a club called Amos's, and it was a good night. And what's cool about Amos has a huge stage and everything, and even like little rafters, people could be up here to watch you or whatever. So it was really cool, and you know, perfect place for us to try it out. It was actually our first time doing the Oubliette live, and so we had a whole new movie, and we had props, and we had this whole thing we were going to do, and it received well. And there was even somebody there that worked with Alzheimer's patients. She was a nurse, and I'd never met her before, but she was like, that was amazing and wonderful and all this kind of stuff. And this guy, I think James and I were loading the truck up outside, and this guy came up to us and he said, hey, I just want to tell you, I'm a fan, and I love you guys, seen you a bunch of times, but this one hit too close to home. I just couldn't really deal with that, especially some of the stuff you show on screen. Just couldn't. It's just a little too much for me. I had to leave. And he said, I didn't want to be rude, and I wasn't trying to walk out. I said, man, look, you don't ever have to apologize for walking out of that. I said, people have done that stuff to me on, you know, with the suicide stuff. Like, close friends of mine have said, like, I can't watch your show. I get it. I support you 100%, and I'll stand outside and listen. I can't watch it because, like I said in the beginning, I said, I want to overwhelm you.
Right.
I want to give you a musical show, this emotional thing. I want to give you a visual thing. I want it to be something to where you are overloaded, so you can't escape it. And it's not because I'm trying to ruin your day. It's because this thing of, like, I feel like people that suffer with this stuff, that's the thing, is they don't feel heard. They don't feel
Yes.
like they can be visible. And so I was going to say, you know, if I asked the average person, I was like, how many people took their lives in 2018 in the US? And people are like, I don't know. And I'll say, well, it would be north of 45,000. And it's one of these things of people think of it as this small problem. And I said, no, for every one of those, 25 attempted. For every one of those, it's estimated that 50 plan or think about it. Now we're talking about really, truly exponential growth, because that's the people that complete suicide.
Yeah.
And in AFSP, as the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, I'm a trainer for them. We don't like to use the word commit suicide. We say complete. And the reason is because even the language you use when we say commit suicide, think about that language. What else do you commit? Well, you commit adultery, you commit a crime, you commit murder, you commit those things. So that just shows we view this as reprehensible. We view it as a crime. We view it as a terrible thing. And it's not that it's a good thing. Don't get us wrong here, but it's a thing of why don't people talk about this? Why don't people come forward? Why don't people seek help? Because they already kind of feel alienated and they feel like they're wrong. They feel like even if you're thinking about it,
You feel guilty.
Yeah, you're guilty. It's almost like
You
you're
feel
a criminal.
guilty and you feel ashamed.
Exactly. And it's I think the advent of social media, for all the good it does, and I really try my best, and I fail every day, but I try my best to be some force for good in the world of social media. Not that I don't have some big, I don't want anyone listening to this thinking I have some big following. I do not. But for my small corner of the world, if somebody sees text from me, I want it to be, something, trying to help. So if you were friends with me on Facebook, you would see me at some point, I'm going to say, like, I'm glad you're alive. I'm really glad you're here. And your life has value to me. And even if you're struggling, all this kind of stuff, I'm with you. And if you need something, you talk to me. And I've had people have taken me up on that over the past year. Just strangers, people I've never met, who saw me saying, like, are you okay? And if not, tell me how I can help. And I would say, I would have to say, like, I'm being genuine. I mean it. And people would tell me this stuff. And I've had, people talk about how they didn't want to live. I had one girl send me pictures of her cut up arms and said, I don't know how to stop doing this and all stuff. And it's sort of, many times I would say, look, I'm not a professional counselor. So, I always want, recommend, like, if you're in those dire straits, get that professional help, but I'm going to listen to you and I'm not going to judge you. And I'm not going to say, you're a this, you're a that or anything. And you can tell me how you're feeling. You can tell me, I don't think I want to live anymore or whatever. And I'm not going to say, well, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to freak out or anything. I'm going to say, okay, well, let's explore that. Like, what's going on? Let's just talk a little bit. And 9 times out of 10, that's what people need.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, they just need somebody who will listen, someone who will just be there and not view them as less than, not view them as weak, not view them as anything else, just to hear them and accept them as this flawed human being, and still care about them at the end of it, still be able to say to them, I'd say the same thing. I'd be say, hey, I'm really glad you're here. And I'm going to be thinking about you tomorrow. Like, that could make somebody's day. It means the world to them. And, obviously, like, if I had, I don't know how many thousand people are friends with me on Facebook, not that any of them pay attention, but like, if all of them message me, like, I would not be able to get back to everybody and try to help everybody, but, I would really try.
Yeah.
I would really try to go through and get to everyone. But that's why I try to put that kind of energy out there. That's why I put these records out. So, I mean, it was kind of a combination of all those things. I know it's just the longest story in the world, and I do apologize.
No, don't, please don't.
But, it was an amalgamation of all these things that made me say, like, I need to be more forthright about this. And, I don't know how it affected. I'm sure it changed the way many of my students saw me when they found out that I was as flawed as all this. but the vast majority of them that have like kept in touch with me, I'm mostly friends on social media with like former students. My current student, they're all too cool for like Facebook. They use Instagram, and I'm not, like, as you can see, I'm not photogenic. So like I stay away from Instagram completely. So we kind of have a little bit of a divide there. And which may be a good thing, but I have these former students who, like, in the past year, they've checked on me, and they've said, like, I just want to be sure you're okay, and I want you to know, like, how much you meant to me, or this, that, or the other thing. And so, it really has come full circle where these kids, it made me think, well, maybe they got it, maybe they saw, and then these guys all had, great upbringings and everything, so the parents raised them right. But maybe I also had a little help in showing them that it's okay to be, it's okay to hurt, it's okay to feel like you can't, and all that kind of stuff. It's okay to say it even, because sometimes that's the only way people know, to help you. I didn't know Eve was going to do what she did. I didn't see it coming.
And Eve was a good friend to you, right? She was a
Yeah.
close friend.
And she was happy. I was the depressive one in our dynamic. I was a sad guy and all this kind of stuff. Well, it was me, blah, blah, blah. And so what made that so difficult for me was the fact that it was like, you're not supposed to be the one to do this. And what do I do now? How do I even process this? How do I even trust anybody else, to not feel that way? Because I was completely blindsided. I mean, I'm not, I've dedicated my life to all this kind of stuff since then. So like, yeah, I know all sorts of red flags, warning signs. I do this, that, and the other thing. And I didn't know. And I blamed myself for the majority of the time since her death. I blame myself, and I still do from time to time.
Why do you blame yourself?
I feel like I should have saved her. I feel like I should have seen it come. I should have said something. I should have been there for her in some way.
But obviously you didn't know. How could you have saved her? She didn't tell you.
Precisely.
That's not your
And
fault.
so what torments me, and this is, the thing about survivor's guilt is, what torments you is, what did I miss? Was there something that was said that I didn't hear? Was there a cue that I should have picked up on? And I mean, every little thing, like, why'd I look this way instead of that way? Like every little thing. Survivor's guilt is very difficult. That's part of what Eve is about. For those of us who've been left behind by people, that crater that's left behind is, man, that's a deep, deep hole to climb out of. You're such a tsunami of emotions. You're furious and angry. You're despondent. You're grief-stricken. You're overwhelmed with guilt. You're confused. It's just remarkably difficult to kind of get through, and it takes a lot of work to process. And I did it the wrong way. I processed her death the exact wrong way. If you look at my transcript in college, you can see when she died, because I was straight A's and then failed. I failed almost everything in one semester. I just stopped functioning. I didn't go to class, didn't do anything. I didn't play any music. It was the quietest time of my life. And music was not there for me at that moment the way I needed her to be. And I didn't know how to deal with it because it was so quiet. That's really what hell sounds like to me. Hell is silent to me. And as a musician, like, I've always heard music in my head. Music has been the driving force. But after she died, it was silent. It was silent in my head. I couldn't hear the music anymore. And music didn't bring me any joy. Like, I'd pick up my sticks and play. Drumming was what I did for the longest time. And it brought me nothing. I felt nothing. I'd play, and I would just say, this is pointless. This does nothing. And eventually it came back, and I had the help of, I developed a much closer friendship with a good buddy of mine who I'm still friends with to this day, who is he's not a metalhead, he's not anything. He was actually the opposite. We shouldn't have gotten along at all. When we first met, we'd gotten closer after when we first met. We were like groomed together in college, and I saw his stuff before he saw me, and he saw my stuff before he saw me. And he had like suits and prep clothes and basketballs and all this kind of stuff. I was like, oh dude. And like this Bible and this like Baptist thing. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be rough. I was like, all right, well, I need to make sure I make a statement. So I was like, what's the most inflammatory stuff I had? So I had like this
Make a
shirt
statement.
over here, and I had this satanic Bible over here, where I was like, whatever I can find that's really gonna piss him off, and like cannibal holocausts and all sorts of stuff. Like, let me just put it all out there. And when we first met each other, we were like sizing each other up.
Oh man.
But what was interesting is that we both like we were both prepared not to like each other, and we'd actually talk to our friends and families about this other person we hadn't met yet. But then we decided to let our guard down, and just kind of talk. And we found out we both loved like crappy movies and all this other kind of stuff. And then we really started to bond. And it was actually because of our differences that we became very close. And so but he was always supportive. He'd always come out to the shows and everything. He'd try to find something to
Really?
like and everything. He was very
He came to
good guy.
your shows?
Yeah. And I came to like a game or two and all this kind of
Nice.
stuff. Like, he was at the time like going to be a coach and all this kind of stuff. But he I was the best man in his wedding, all this kind of
Oh
stuff.
my
He was
God, that's so
the best man at my
awesome.
wedding. It was one of those kinds of things. Like it was crazy. And he's been there for me like since then, like when all sorts of terrible things have happened to me. And I'm there for him, all that kind of stuff. So it was one of those things like we had made this friendship, and then we had lost it just a little bit, but then we had kind of somehow like rekindled and kind of got going again. And we ended up saying like, let's get an apartment together. We lived together for like 7 years.
Wow.
And kind of crazy, like how long I've known this guy. But anyway, it was things like that, like just finding somebody to talk with who didn't judge me. Like he didn't judge me for that stuff. He didn't understand the depression, didn't understand the guilt, didn't understand any of the stuff, but he never judged me. He just listened, and he was there for me. And he would just simply say the same kinds of things I say to people when they say, I don't know what to say to someone. And he would just say, I hear you. He would listen, and he would say, well, I care about you. You matter to me. And like, that's enough. People, you don't have to be a mental health expert. You don't have to be a psychiatrist or anything like that. You just have to be able to talk to someone and just listen and just say, I hear you.
Yeah.
Or just ask, like, are you okay? Are you going to be okay? Or just tell someone, hey, you matter to me. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, exactly.
That goes a long way. So, and eventually, like, I didn't talk about Eve much. The first time I ever did was I wrote about it, wrote this, this is back in the MySpace days. I wrote a thing about her, but I didn't say her name, but I wrote this thing about her. And then eventually I could say her name, but I get all upset. And then, as time went on, so I'd started writing for years. That whole album, I started writing those songs, kind of trying to process it, because I was thinking like there wasn't music I needed at the time. I needed something different. I needed there was music out there that either kind of embraced what it was like to be suicidal. There was flowery, poetic music that sort of reflected on missing someone who was gone or something like that. There really wasn't something that addressed what it felt like to go through what I went through. And that's what I wanted to do with Eve, was to try to translate the whole experience. into something tangible. And, you know, what is it like to simultaneously want to die and then lose somebody? And how, like, what if guilt kept you alive? It's a weird thing. It's hard to even describe to people.
Yeah.
And I decided then I wanted to help people, and it drove me to want to be more of a better teacher and things like that. So I dedicated myself to teaching, got a master's degree, all this other kind of stuff. And I wanted to help people, and I wanted to save lives, and I wanted to reach people through music and through kind of strengthening them, making them stronger. And so, you know, like you would see me at certain band camps and stuff like that with students, and I'm like a drill sergeant, like making them do push-ups, all this other kind of stuff. But they didn't understand at the time. Many of them did later. And many of them attested to it later, that it did it helped them, and it did them a lot of good, even though they didn't feel like doing that kind of stuff. It was it's a purification rite, and it does a lot of good for them, you know, to do that exercise and to become a part of this group and everything, and them suffering together and all this kind of stuff. In many ways, sometimes them hating me right then as like the bad drill sergeant kind of thing, they would bond, and they felt like they belonged. They would become a family, they would become a team, and they could lean on each other. And it would kind of be an epiphany later. Like that's what kind of solidifies those bonds, is these experiences. You know, you got to go through a little something to really strengthen these bonds. And so, you know, trying to strengthen the body while strengthening the mind kind of thing, right? Which there is a connection between that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
The mind body connection is very real.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I would see it in students where, you know, the confidence would go up, and they would carry themselves differently because they had started, you know, working a little harder and doing these kinds of things, but also finding their voice through music and being able to kind of express some things, or being able to control an emotion or something like that, and translate that into sound, which to me is magic. I would always say, like, you know, music is the purest form of magic that you're ever going to find. Because think about it for just a second. I'm going to create these sounds, you know, say I'm going to sing to you. I'm going to sing you a song. And I could, through manipulating my voice in these ways and through certain vibrations, I can affect you in certain ways, you know, emotionally. I could draw up memories that you didn't think about for a long time, that I don't have any way of knowing about, but I can pluck them out of your head and bring them to the forefront as you think, like, wow, I haven't thought about this in a long time. Or, you know, if it's, you know, if someone you feel a connection with or something like that, like you can bring someone, you know, goosebumps with the sound. You can make, you know, I mean, if you want to get romantic about things, you make someone's heart go aflutter, or whatever, you know, like it really is magic. Because when you think about it, I said, you know, you're creating art. And I remember saying this to them before every concert. So what's magical about this is that we're going to create art that everyone's going to experience at the same time, and then it disappears. We can't grab it, we can't hold it, we can't touch it. It just exists, and then it goes away. So that's what makes it magic. Is these vibrations, very specific vibrations we're going to send out there, and you're going to affect people's emotions. You're going to affect people's thought processes. You're going to affect people's moods, just with this energy and vibration you're going to put out there. And then the energy they give you as the audience, you're going to feed off of that. You're going to feel them. They're going to feel you. You're going to have this entire experience. You're going to have this very intimate experience, and you're never going to share a word. You may not ever know their names. It's like people who've seen me perform live. I've had a very intimate experience with these people, and I don't know most of them. They know a hell of a lot about me, but that's what makes music the perfect vehicle for this kind of stuff. That's why so many of us retreat to it in terms of mental health and all this kind of stuff. So I decided I wanted to teach it. I want to make an album that will express this. Like every album before Eve was kind of dealing with other kinds of things. If you go back to my back catalog, I started the Reticent as a side project when I was in this war metal band called Werewolf, which was the remnants of like, talk about so how weird these connections are. Werewolf was what happened to a band called Dark Moon. When John, who was the frontman of Dark Moon, joined a band called Nile, the guys from Dark Moon started Werewolf. I joined Werewolf. You fast forward a couple of years, now I'm in Xael with the guy who is playing the same position in Nile that John played. It's just sort of like
It all came full circle.
it's weird kind of thing. But anyway, like I had these like soft songs, these sad things, and I had, the story of my love life is a try. I would say I'd make an album about it. I already did, which was just all these like, how could you do this to me kind of stuff. And this album called Amor Mortem Me Erit, which is love will be the death of me in Latin. And all these, just every song, just some failed relationship thing. And so I had done these kind of like little bitty kind of micro expressions, but Eve was kind of being written in the background behind that. And then one day I decided I don't want the Reticent to be an acoustic side project anymore. It's going to be my main thing. So I'm going to take all my energy, put it into it, and play whatever the hell I want. And I'm not going to limit myself. I'm not even going to care what the genre is. I found out that it was prog. I just wrote it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, I was able to put that together. There are things I think are great about it. The things I think are not so great about it. But we then took it out on the road and talked to people and helped people and as much as we could. And sometimes we were successful, sometimes we weren't. Probably one of the worst things that I've ever experienced as a musician was a guy named Grant Bowen, young man from Virginia. I had found out, it's kind of a bad story. I've already taken up so much time talking about this.
No, just keep talking.
Grant was a fan. He was a fan of the Reticent, really, really liked it. Actually had, I think, like all the records and all this kind of stuff, and thought Eve was the bee's knees. And I found out through his mother, who hated me with a passion because he had taken his life, and Eve was playing on repeat in his room when she found him. And I was devastated. I remember I messaged everybody I knew, and I was like, I'm a monster. What have I done? And I said, I think I have to quit. I think we need to just take the rest down. I think to erase every trace of this from the earth. This is poison. What, oh my God, all this stuff. And I just, it was like the absolute antithesis of everything I wanted to accomplish. And the mother blamed me for it and said, you killed my son and all this stuff. And it was awful. And, this is all on social media so people can see it. And I think a lot of it might still be up.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
A lot of people that came to my defense, singers from other bands, like were saying like, you do not know this guy. Like he works harder than anybody else, to help people, right. And all this kind of stuff. And I eventually got to talk to her. And she actually apologized to me. And she said, I'm sorry, I was full of grief and I needed someone to blame. And she then later said, I think that he wasn't listening to your album to get the courage to do that. I think he was listening to your album because he wanted to feel comfort.
Yeah.
And his father he corresponded with me via email, actually sent me pictures of him, sent me recordings of his. He was a guitar player, sent me songs he wrote and stuff like that. And there's a dedication to him. I don't have a copy of the CD in here, but he's one of the 3 people that Oubliette is dedicated to the memory of. And it meant a lot to me. Like his father told me about how like Grant like shared the Reticent with him. He was like, man, you guys got to listen to this band. I love this band and all this stuff. And, I felt bad because he said like he'd seen me live like twice or something like that. And, I don't know if I ever met him. I don't know that he ever came up to talk to me. Maybe he just came to the show and left, which is fine, but I don't know. I feel bad that I wasn't able to help him. And so I carry that forward. But all those experiences, all that stuff, that whole amalgamation, I mean, that's kind of why I talk so openly about this stuff. That's why I am the way I am, because I'd rather be honest and risk the ridicule and remind people that, I'm human too, you're human. It's okay to hurt like this. It's okay to say the words, I don't want to live anymore. It's okay to do any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But there's ways to kind of get through that and everything. But if you shut down and you don't tell anybody, and just like Grant, where his parents had no idea and they didn't have any clue, and that's why, well, this music must have made him do it, because he couldn't have. But then they, slowly put it together, talk to some other people, look at things he wrote. It's like, oh, there are some signs that I didn't see. And it's kind of like Eve, same thing. Like, you look back and you say, well, maybe this was a sign, maybe this was something. So, that's kind of why I do that now. And, there are people that could certainly, you could accuse, talk very depressively, or make suicidal proclamations that are insincere or wanting to get attention. But I really think that if you look at it, if you look at how people talk, if we just educate ourselves in the slightest, the difference is very obvious to me. Like, I have a friend on social media who posts stuff all the time, like the most depressive things, and I know she doesn't mean a word of it. I don't think less of her. I don't think she's a terrible person or anything like that. I think that she needs some help. And I think she just really wants attention. She really wants someone to say, I care about you, I worry about you. And that's, saying those kinds of things can get that for her. I don't engage because of that fact. I'm not gonna kind of play those sorts of games. And
Because you don't feel like it's sincere.
well, yeah, and it's just sort of like, that's not where my expertise is. Well, gosh, I say expertise like I know what I'm talking about. Where the majority of my experiences and my ongoing education is centered. And that's where, I don't know. I mean, that's where you can see it in kind of the way people talk, the way people act. And I get called on it. Sometimes I do, like, I'll give you an example. I do avoidant behavior. If I invite you to look on my Facebook, scroll down to some time where I say something like, I'm glad you're alive, or this, that, the other thing, and there's lots of replies. And then look at how many times people might say, how are you doing? What about you? Or this, that, the other thing, and watch how I will dodge that question. And I will make it about them. I'll do a redirect. It's called avoidant behavior. And it's a way of trying to avoid being honest, avoid saying what's really going on.
But isn't that what you do?
Mm-hmm.
So why would you avoid it?
Many times, if I'm saying that kind of stuff, I've said those words like, hey, I'm really glad you're listening to the other thing, as a part of almost like a cognitive behavioral therapy thing. And I want to avoid dealing with what's going on with me.
Okay.
I need to focus on something else. I need to focus on someone else. And so, and that's kind of a good segue into just sort of, like the attention seeking people. I mean, many of them can still actually be in legitimate pain. Many of them can be all that kind of stuff. They just, attention's a funny thing, man. I mean, it's like a drug. And I mean, think about now, like, why is that even more prevalent now? I mean, the state of social media, like, we're in love with attention. We're in love with ourselves. We grow all the more solipsistic, and we kind of, many of us adjudicate ourselves based on metrics. How many friends do we have? How many likes did I get?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? A lot of people liked this, but nobody loved it. So maybe it's not really good, or maybe it's not this, or I put up a picture of myself, but not all these people commented on, well, maybe, am I ugly? Is that what the problem is? All this kind of stuff. And it's just sort of, I see that in my kids. My students do that. They struggle with that kind of stuff. And it's part of the reason we see a continual uptick in this kind of stuff, because we're defining well-being for many of us through ridiculous metrics, and
Like people are defining their self-worth through how many likes or followers they have on social media.
yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think that's a big contributor to why there's been an uprise in depression and low self-esteem, especially for young kids.
and I mean, it's rampant across the board for adolescents and everything. I think young girls are particularly vulnerable to that.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I had to learn about it for some of my own research. Just about, I remember learning about things like filters. I had no idea what a filter was. I was thinking like high pass filter, low pass filter, like in a studio. It was like, no, you can make yourself look completely different. Like you can change everything about your appearance. I'm like, well,
Yeah, it's weird.
that's cool, I guess, like for just a laugh, but man, that can really do some damage to one's self-image really fast. If you live in filters, if you live in a idealized state, it's sort of like if I always sang with lots of auto tune or something like that, and I was like, man, I could sing really well. And then I went out to people, I'm like, or like, God, man, you're awful. What? I'm wonderful. And it's not that I'm trying to tell people like they can't feel pretty, or they can't do this. It's just sort of a thing of like, we have to, part of mental health is dealing with reality.
Right.
Like there's got to be, like, I'm a big David Goggins fan. I believe that, you have to sort of embrace some suffering. Suffering is not necessarily inherently bad. It's just a part of life.
Right.
It's just one of those things we have to deal with. We have to learn how to deal with. We have to learn how to cope with it. We have to learn what to do with it. Right. And that's kind of the main thrust of all that kind of stuff that we've got to get to, is just sort of learning how to just accept certain things, like, and then like decide to do things about it. Like I said, you know what, I don't like my physical appearance at all. And I don't like feeling weak or this or the other. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to work out. That's what I'm going to do. And so last year, like, I embarked on this journey, and I lost like 30 something pounds, and was just doing body weight stuff and push-ups, and I bought a bunch of weights and all this other kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna reach these goals. I'm not there where I want to be yet, but it was a thing of, I had one point in my life had kind of done that stuff, and I let it go. And I was like, I need to stop making excuses. Get it done. What's going on here? Hold yourself accountable. And it helps you a lot mentally to be able to just kind of embrace reality some. Now, it's not that you don't go through struggles with that kind of thing, but part of the journey of mental health is changing the circumstance. Depression is this cycle, and you have to do something to disrupt the cycle. If you don't do anything to disrupt the cycle, well, it doesn't change. And we can fall in love with that. There's a Nirvana lyric that I thought was absolutely beautiful and perfect. It was, especially knowing what we know now about Kurt Cobain. People can think what they want about him. I know, poser, who likes Nirvana, like whatever. But he wrote a line that said, "I miss the comfort in being sad."
Yeah. Oh,
Now,
I always felt that.
that was a line from a song that was actually fairly upbeat, and it was on an album where they had decided, like, they had done this Nevermind thing. Kurt Cobain famously didn't like the production because it was really poppy, really clean. And so in Utero, that follow-up, it was very grimy, grungy kind of stuff.
More like going back to their roots.
Yeah. And you notice like in there, he says things like, I miss the comfort in being sad. It's sort of a, you know, to me, it was almost like, well, he was a superstar at this point. And so like you know, maybe he felt like he didn't have an excuse to be sad anymore. Or maybe he had achieved this thing. So now, like, now what do you do? What do you do after you get your dream?
Right.
What do you dream about when you captured it? Like, I don't know, like, you know, if I played like Vakken or something like that, or got to go on tour with like BT Bam or Opeth or something like that, or whatever, it's sort of be like, well, what now? What? You know, that's kind of, you know, it's almost like the top of the mountain. And this guy climbed a mountain he didn't even have an inkling would even be possible when he started. And so he says this line, I miss the comfort in being sad. There is, and I've felt it. I think anybody that's ever felt depression, there's a familiarity and a comfort that comes with that depression. It feels, and I'll tell you what it is, it feels honest. You can trust it. I can trust that pain. If I think you're gonna, it's you know, it's what's made me kind of, it's not necessarily like a bad friend, but like bad, especially like in romantic relationships, what may be bad, because I would just expect like, well, so obviously you're going to cheat on me. You're going to lie to me. You're going to do this to me. Like, that's going to happen. I know that's going to happen because I can trust that. I can trust that pain. Pain is real. The idea that you actually like me for me or any of that kind of stuff. Well, now wait a second. I gotta kind of learn about that. I gotta believe that kind of stuff. No, it's much easier for me to just trust the familiar pain over here because the pain doesn't lie to me.
Right.
You're gonna lie to me, and all of a sudden you become fucking Gollum with your precious. But I mean, that's really true. And people that don't have depression, they see that as you being stubborn. They see that as being facile or whatever. And it's not that we can excuse that behavior because it's not fair. It isn't fair, especially in interpersonal relationships. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Just flat out. And it took me a long time to learn that, right? Which is one reason why I'm a lot more open now and why I'm willing to just kind of give somebody the benefit of the doubt. And I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to give you a little rope and I'm going to trust you till you tell me that I can't trust you. Because that's the world I prefer to live in, rather than thinking everybody is out to get me or something like that. So I wish I had learned it a long time ago and avoided a lot of heartache, but it is what it is, right? But depression, like when you feel that I hate myself, or you're nothing, or I want to die, or this, that, the other. When you feel that kind of stuff and you felt it for a long time, that familiarity is comforting in a very bizarre way that people that have never experienced it don't understand.
Right.
And that's why it's easy to retreat to. That's why it's easy to fall back into the pattern. We're creatures of habit. We are constantly searching for homeostasis. And let's say you've been depressed for most of your life, most of your time, whatever, lonely, this, that, the other thing. It feels normal.
Yes.
You know, and that's the thing. That's what people don't understand is, you know, I don't want to be solipsistic. I want to like hang out with people. I want to do more. I want to try to get out there. Like, you know, again, if you follow me on social media, like every once in a while you might see something like, who wants to come over and watch a movie? Like no one ever does. But like just me saying that kind of thing is sort of like hey, I'm gonna put myself out there and say, hey, somebody, you know, because like one day somebody's gonna say, hey, let's go get something to eat. Or I'll say someone's gonna take me up on it. I'll be like, all right, let's go. Let's meet up. Let's make it happen. You know, it's a way of trying to break that cycle of, well, you know, no one's around or I'm lonely or this or the other thing. Woe is me. I got to do something to kind of break out of that sort of thing. Because if I don't want that to be normal anymore, I have to create a new normal.
Right.
That's where people fall. That's, you know, the way I was able to lose weight and start, you know, attempting to like build muscle and things like that. Not that I'm anywhere even close, is I started to say my new normal is I work out every day. That's the normal. That's just how it's going to be. I'm going to stick to this. And for people that are dealing with depression, a lot of times it's hard for them to just say, I need to make a new normal. And that's why when I talk to people or try to help people through this kind of stuff, I ask them about what little things you could do today. What's a victory you could get today? I say, did you take a shower today? Why don't you go take a shower? take like a good shower, wash everything under the feet, the whole 9 yards. Get yourself really, really clean. And then towel off completely and put on some new clothes. It could just be like t-shirt and shorts, whatever. Like just do that. If you did that, why don't you try like brushing your teeth as well? How you feel now? Now, they're not going to magically feel better, but they're going to have that much more kind of going because they did a little something. What else could we do? You know, what's a little thing you could do? Depression robs us of a sense of purpose. That's what makes us so immobile. That's what makes it so effective as a virus and making that cycle work. It takes a purpose away from it. It takes, you know, what's the point? What's the point in this? What's the point in that? And if you can reevaluate and kind of put that stuff back in, that oftentimes helps a lot, you know? So I don't know, like when I'm talking with people that come to me, I oftentimes ask like, you know, so, you know, who are you? Or what are you about? And what's important to you? And if you could do anything today, what would you do? And all those kinds of things. And there's ways to kind of accomplish goals and other things like on these small scales that can help you kind of chip away at things. And the important thing is to like try to make those things the new normal. Say, okay, this is the normal. And, you know, I'm living proof that that does not fix it. It does not automatically change everything overnight. I backslide, I fall constantly. I did not deal with my major depressive stuff even after I got diagnosed. I didn't deal with it for years, and I mean like double digits years. I just ignored it, and so it took a long time and a lot of mistakes to kind of learn that. And so for me, that is normal, and like I totally get it. That's again what people don't understand. Even the folks going back to the attention-seeking kind of behavior. Sometimes that's all you know. And I don't blame these people for that. I don't blame anybody for wanting attention.
Right.
I don't blame the guy that's, you know, posting on social media all the time trying to get a laugh or this or the other thing. I don't blame the girl who's posting like very scantily clad kind of things. I don't say like, oh, she just wants to. I'm just like, everybody wants attention. That's part of this. It's a human need. We need to connect with others. I don't blame anybody for these things. I get it. But I mean, and you know what? Each of those people, the person posting the memes, the person posting like the sexy photos, the person that's saying like, I don't want to live anymore, like all this kind of stuff. Every one of those people could be, all those actions could be coming from the same place of depression. Every one of them.
Yeah.
Trying to make people laugh is a way of trying to cure your own depression. Trying to someone tell me I'm beautiful, someone tell me I'm attractive is a way of trying to give me, I need some positive chemicals in my brain. Somebody tell me something good about myself.
Some
That's
sort
a
of
way
validation.
Yeah, I mean, those things, and I'm not saying they're all good or bad. I'm not going to comment on that kind of thing because it's not really my place, but that's what a lot of times those things are. And I think you might find that many times, many of the people who might be the most social, the most outgoing, the most this, that, the other thing, they oftentimes have those huge struggles. And they do a lot of these things to try to combat their own demons, you know? So, you know, it's just, I don't know, I've kind of just launched into the world's longest tangent, but it's difficult to understand, and that's why depression gets a bad rap. People think depression is what happens after you have a breakup. You know, I get depressed, and
well, I mean, it can be, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, it can be a trigger for that kind of thing. But like, it's sort of like for people like me who study this stuff, if you say the word depression to me, I'm thinking of a clinical problem. I'm thinking of that kind of thing. I'm thinking of a state of mind you can't really seem to break out of. I like to put it as sort of like when I get into those places, I become immune to joy. I become immune to laughter or anything like that. I'm
That's a good way to
so
describe it.
it's almost like I've been inoculated against anything that feels good.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the difference. It's not I'm feeling an overwhelming sense of grief, sorrow, loss, and those are very real. I'm not saying suffering a breakup or anything like that. Any of these triggers of depression, loss, breakups, job troubles, like any of these kinds of things, they're 100% legitimate. And the grief you feel from those things is 100% legitimate and can be devastating. I'm just saying it's not worse or less than depression. I'm saying it's a different thing.
Yeah.
Because it has we can trace it to a cause, and that we can kind of work through those things potentially and everything. With depression over here, it doesn't have a cause. When I get up in the morning and I suddenly don't want to live anymore, I can't point to something. I can't say, well, I can't play this keyboard very well, so if I practice more, that will fix that. I will feel better about myself. It doesn't work that way. That's not the way depression works. It's not logical. It's an interruption of the logical center of your brain. That's why it's this cycle. I suck because I suck because I suck, and therefore I suck, which makes me suck. So therefore I suck. It's circular logic, and it isn't reasonable. You can't reason your way out of it. Again, the people that are not prone to depression, they always come to these folks with that's why they go about it the wrong way. You can't reason somebody out of major depressive disorder. You can't reason someone out of bipolar disorder. You can't reason somebody out of these states of mind, because they're not reasonable. They're not logical. I don't hate myself because, oh, I did X, Y, or Z. I just hate myself because I existed. And sort of like, well, that's not really logical. Bingo. Now you get it. It's not logical. So how do you get out of it? Well, you have to kind of work at it. You have to get the person to sort of start to find a way to break out of the cycle and find a way, out. That's why so many times we just ask people to talk. Many times people will find their own way out, or at least kind of get them to the next day. And when I say find their way out, I don't mean they're now cured. I mean, they find their way out of kind of maybe like this path that's going to lead them down to destruction. They might be able to kind of veer off. Okay. And sometimes them kind of talking about it can help, but it's that caring, that sort of, I hear you. I value you. You are important to me. And you can tell me all this stuff, and I'm not going to judge you for it. That sort of validation and all those kinds of things, that can release a little of that dopamine. It can release a little bit of that positive energy that they may need to go forward, even if they didn't realize that. And they may not realize it at the time. Like, they may have been planning to take their life, and then after talking to somebody, maybe they still feel ultra depressed, but they're not saying, I'm going to go get the gun right now.
Mm-hmm.
And those, by the way, those are the victories. It's not about trying to cure someone overnight. It's about just trying to get them through to tomorrow. Because that's the break we get. The only thing we get, the only thing that we have on our side is that right now we're breathing, and all signs point to us being able to get up tomorrow and do something. And that's worth a lot. It's worth a lot more than people think it is. We devalue that a lot in popular culture and how we talk and all this kind of stuff. And I know it's really fun to meme about, but I've been on the other side of a gun. If I'm frank, if it were not for a jammed gun, I would not be here. I know some friends of mine who consider that to be some like
Divine intervention
thing. I think of it as poor craftsmanship. But it is what it is. And but it really is true. Like I've looked down into a box and seen somebody that I know that is now someone I knew, and they're not coming back. I'm not going to be able to talk to them again. I'm not going to be able to say anything to them again. And I've lost some people like Adam King, who the last words I said to him were "fuck you." We had a big fight. I'm never going to get to apologize, and I was wrong. I was wrong. I'm never going to be able to say to Adam, I was wrong and I'm sorry. That's just how it is. That chapter closed with that on my conscience. And there's nothing I can do to unmake it. And I can help tons of people. I can do all these wonderful things. But I can't make amends to Adam. That's just how it is. So having been face to face with all these kind of final things, like I had a period of time in the early 2000s where like so many people died around me, like 7 people died within 3 years. And it was a lot of death at one time, a lot to process. And, you know, I realized, you know, and that's something that Henry Rollins talked about after Joe Cole was killed. You know, his best friend, he saw him get killed during a robbery.
Yeah.
And, you know, he said the same thing. He said, you know, as bad as life gets, life is awesome because, you know, you got one. The alternative of looking into this fox that contains your friend is, you know, it sucks in comparison. You know, as succinct as that may be to put it, it's the truth. And so I mean that's why I try to keep that stuff in mind, and you know, I'm trying to make the most of my time. And so like I decided, you know, the way to fight against this is figure out my purpose. My purpose is to help people. My purpose is to make music, and I want to find ways to do both. You know, I'm not going to be able to eliminate suffering in the world or anything like that. But I want to see if I can help people figure out a way to use it, to maybe do something that will, you know, make them feel better. But yeah, I spent a lot of time very alone. And I had to kind of learn how to be stronger to take some of these things. And I want to see if I can help others maybe not feel that way. And that's what I want other people to do, is just, I'm not saying you have to be sunshines and rainbows. I'm saying you need to be compassionate. And even the people that might annoy you with their depression or their this, that, the other thing, or their attention seeking, it's sort of like, well, yeah, you seek attention too. We all do. You posted that funny meme because you want people to laugh at it. You didn't post it because you're some, you know, esoteric genius, like, and you're doing some Aristotelian pontification about the world. You want people to laugh. You want to impact people, and you want that little dopamine release of people think I'm funny or something like that. That's a healthy thing. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, and it's no different than anything else. Like I want to I post positive things, or, you know, whatever I post, like wanting to maybe help somebody out and make the day better. And so it means a lot to me when somebody says, like, you know, this helped me, or this idea thing, or, you know, it also helps me, like when I'm struggling and other people put on there. Again, you can kind of like, that's another reason, if you ever notice, like my Facebook is public. All my posts are public for the most part.
I didn't notice that.
And if you go back and look, you'll notice every one of those things, even things about me and what I'm going through, they'll be public for the most part. And it's because I'm not going to hide. And I want this to, you know, I'm trying to be, it's even little details like that. No one notices, no one cares, but it's like, I'm not hiding this. I'm going to be as forthright with this as possible. And, you know, I hurt, or I'm this, or I'm that, or I want you to be okay. And if you can read these words, I'm glad you're alive. Doesn't matter what, you know, you can hate me and all this kind of stuff. And there's people that do. I had to block somebody a while back because he wouldn't leave me alone. And like, it got to be too much. Like I even had the thing like to ignore, like I found out there was like a button on Messenger where you could like ignore somebody and it would just automatically kind of put their messages aside. But I, at the same time, was going through a bunch of stuff, and I've got, you know, health issues and other things I'm going through. Those kinds of things I don't like to talk about. But I was just going through a lot, and this guy I had known a couple years reached out to me. He's going through some stuff, and I'm on the phone with another friend she's having a crisis, and he's messaging me, and I'm not responding to him, and he gets all pissed off, like, I guess you don't really care about, and I was just like, well, dude, I can't be everywhere at once. I got to help people, where I can, and I'm on the phone, man. I can't like text you and talk to her at the same time. And so I said, I'm sorry for what you're going through. I'm not trying to ignore you. I said, I really don't appreciate you kind of suggesting I don't give a shit, and all this kind of stuff, because I was slow to reply to you.
Mhm.
But so eventually, like, he kept writing to me, and I had to ignore him. And then eventually, he started, every time I'd post like, hey, I'm glad you're alive, he would like comment bomb it with, I don't believe you're full of shit. So like, I had to just block the guy. But
Damn.
like, even him, I don't hate him. I don't wish him bad. I don't hope horrible things happen to him. I hope he's okay. I hope he did get through the struggles he was having. I hope he's okay. So that's, I really am trying to put that out there to the world,
Fuck. I think you should just take over this podcast. You are you are so much more fucking wise than I am. I think I only cried in the first episode, which is kind of funny because in the last episode I talked about like stuff that I had gone through, and like I thought maybe I would have a hard time with it, but I was pretty okay. But fuck, man, when you were talking about suicide and how you had that gun by your side and how you almost did it. There's been so many times. I mean, I think about it all the time. Actually, I haven't told this to anybody. A big reason why I started this podcast is to hold myself accountable for something, so I don't do it, because I'm pretty isolated. I most of my life I have spent alone, and it's like good friends have been few and far in between. And I've been a very damaged person for a really long time. And it wasn't until recently, within this last year, that I finally began my healing journey. But I still have, suicidal thoughts. And there's so many times, I don't know why, when I think about doing it, I always think about hanging myself. So I guess if I were to do it, that would be the way. But when I started this, I was like, I know I'm not the only one who's feeling this way. And I know that this is something that I need personally. It just makes me feel better personally to talk to people that are going through the same thing. And if it makes me feel better, then obviously there's going to be somebody else that really needs it too. They need something to relate to. They need authentic human connection, which in this whole social media world is so hard to come by nowadays. Everybody is fucking using filters and being just inhuman. They're being so fucking inhuman towards each other, and everyone's expected to be cold and callous, like it's a sign of strength, when really, in reality, it's a sign of weakness, because you're just covering the hurt that's underneath that. And I think when people have the courage to be authentic about their suffering, it taps into the part of those people that are trying to hide that for themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it reminds them that they're human. So a big part of me doing the show is reminding people of their humanity and bringing everyone in this community closer together, hopefully. I mean, I know that's kind of ambitious to say, but with so many fucking subgenres, and I feel like musicians are always competing against each other. Like, why don't we just go back to the root of why we started creating music in the first place, the emotional resonance behind it, and the depth and purity of our souls, you know what I mean? And I can easily say this is going to be one of the most important fucking episodes that is ever going to come out on this show. I cannot thank you enough for everything that you just shared. Like, holy shit, dude. I was getting choked up there. I'm sorry, I got kind of sniffly. Like, I wasn't ready. Like, my foundation is all fucked up. I don't even care. But holy shit, Chris. Like, I don't mean to sound familiar, but I think you're beautiful. I think what you're doing is beautiful. I cannot express my gratitude enough. Like, I feel so grateful to have connected with you. You know, when you just randomly add a person on Facebook, it's like, oh, this guy looks cool, that chick's hot, whatever. You don't really, you don't really think that it's gonna lead to any depth or interpersonal connection. And so I feel so grateful that you had the strength and fucking just authenticity to do this with me. And I get excited when people get excited about it too, because it's like, okay, cool, I'm not the only one who's passionate about mental health. And it's like, yeah, and you're so fucking just smart and educated on the mental health
And all that stuff. Yeah.
thing, whatever. I
I'm gonna-
just feel so, I haven't even watched your show and I feel overwhelmed. Okay. Like, your presence is powerful. You have power. You have something very, very special. And I hope that you see it. I really do, because what you're trying to do with your music is what I'm trying to do with this show. But music taps into a frequency that can reach people on a much deeper level, on a soul level. You know what I mean? And that, I mean, I want to make music too, precisely for that purpose. I want to take people through a journey of catharsis, which is what it sounds like you're doing with the Reticent. So, and you're doing it sonically. You're tapping into people's fucking souls sonically. And like, I really, oh my God, I have to see you. I have to see you live. There's no way that I'm not going to see you. Like, once you start touring again, please hit me up. Let me know. Like, I have to be there, and I want to meet you in person, and we should totally hang out. Like, I hope if you're down, I'm not gonna be like, hey, be my friend, but
No, like I mean, this, I respect you a great deal for being forthright and doing this kind of thing. It does take a lot of courage just to not even have the veil of a song, but just to kind of put yourself out there as you are. I have a great admiration for what you're doing, and deep appreciation for it. And you are not alone in it. Like, you definitely have me as a friend. We are
Thank you.
we are definitely connected now. And so if you ever feel at all kind of alone or anything like that, as you were saying, as we all do, you have me in your corner 100%. And I'm phone call away or something like that. Okay. Truly. So, and it's really, this is an important kind of thing, just being able to get people talking about this kind of thing. Because as the same thing, you just mentioned catharsis, the way you kind of feel, it's sort of an overwhelming thing, but it's almost a release of going through these things, hurting a little bit, talking about this kind of stuff. And then at the end, it's sort of a, wait, man, there's someone else here, like, you want to touch them. Like, if I would love to embrace you and say, like, man, we're together here. Like, I feel you, you feel me, like we're connected. And I think sharing conversations like this and ideas like this, that's part of it, getting people to just to connect a little bit. And I mean, that's kind of the nice thing about the podcast world, is that it's this unscripted, off the cuff kind of conversational thing. It doesn't have the veneer of filtered, pictures. It doesn't have the carefully
Exactly.
worded post kind of thing.
Mhm.
It's a raw, real thing, and we can maybe see people's real humanity and everything, flaws and all, stumblings and all. Like, we forget words, we stumble over things. In my case, you talk way too much, whatever. And but that's why I think this is a great thing, and I'm glad that you're doing something with such a purpose. I mean, I've been on a lot of podcasts here since Oubliette came out, and it's been really great because I've been able to talk about, like, Alzheimer's and encouraging people to go research Alzheimer's and what they can do to get involved and everything. But oftentimes it, like, comes back to, like, let's talk about the album, let's talk about this. And many times the folks are really nice, because I want to just talk about issues and all this other kind of stuff, because of
Oh, you're perfect for me. It's more about getting to know the people behind the music and not so, I mean, it is about the music also, but I want to know the musicians behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So, that's just, it's just a very, very good thing. So I'm just extremely grateful to you to have given not just me, but other people a place to talk about these kinds of things, to share these kinds of stories and to put it out there into the world. And I mean, it's kind of like Reticent. Like I'm amazed at the fact that anybody listens to the Reticent. Like it blows my mind that anybody has ever bought one of my CDs willingly, or a T-shirt or something like that. Like that just blows my mind. And then to like see, I have somewhere around here like a couple of these magazines over here, like where there've been like features. It says like a big letters, the Reticent, and there's a picture of me and all this big interview or article about me, and like one of them's in Norwegian and all this kind of stuff. And it's just kind of crazy to me to think that anybody would have that kind of interest.
It's awesome though.
But it's a thing where, it's kind of like your what you're doing here. It's sort of, it's not, it doesn't really matter like how many people you could potentially reach. It matters who are the people you're reaching.
Exactly.
And so like I'm still riding high off it because it was the last show we played before the pandemic hit. I'm thinking about that young lady who wanted to meet me and talk to me and tell me like, showed me her arm and had these scars on it, but they were healing, and I haven't cut myself in 10 months and all this kind of stuff, which by now, hopefully she stayed with it. I haven't heard from her or anything, but I hope she stayed with it. And I hope that, we just passed her, 20 months, or I guess at this point it'd be 22 months. So I sincerely hope that she's, doing well and all that kind of stuff, and say the Reticent does nothing else. If I help this girl stop cutting herself, man, that's huge. That's amazing. If your podcast reaches one person who's just kind of by themselves and they feel like they're connected to you, they feel like they hear you or something like that, or they're just getting a little something out of it, or it just kind of helps them get to tomorrow. If that's as much as we do as we got somebody to the next day, that's massive.
Exactly. Exactly. That's all we could ask for, right?
Yeah. So, that's what that's part of what we aspire to do in the mental health world, is just try to get people to kind of make it to that next level. And that's why I do a lot of the things I do. Is I mentioned that CBT stuff, that cognitive behavioral therapy. Do you know about the triangle? Do you know what that is? The CBT triangle? I've
heard of it, but I'm not sure what it is.
So a big revelation for me that helped change how I behaved. Because if you talk to people who've known me for a long time, I'm sure they will tell you I was a depressive piece of shit for a long time, or I was a this or a that. I only recently found out that there were people in my home music scene that thought I was like this arrogant person, because like at shows I would just stand like way back.
That's everybody though.
And I just wouldn't talk. Even if I played the shows, like I just didn't talk to people, and I always looked pissed off. And I was like, I thought that was okay because everyone did that. But like, I'm also not a, like, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke, I don't do any of that kind of stuff. I don't give anybody shit if they do it themselves. I don't care. It's just, I don't want to do it. Just how I am. And, if I had some big problem with it, we wouldn't have played bars and stuff like that. I would have been, before we start, I'm going to need everybody to empty those bottles of, like, I don't care. Like, do you, man, whatever makes you happy. I will say, like, some people do not afford me the same courtesy of, because I get a lot of the, oh, come on, man, why don't you drink? Why don't you just have some? I was in a band with a guy who spent 5 years trying to get me to drink.
Jeez.
And I was just like, dude, I did my time as a teenager. It's not for me. I just don't want to do it. And but because like I wouldn't drink, I wouldn't smoke, I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do anything, I would just kind of stand and be very quiet, and I'm very sort of standoffish. I'm not, despite how talkative I am, I have to kind of make myself be this way because my natural inclination is rather shy.
You?
Yeah.
No
Uh,
way.
I have to kind of put on a different hat. It's part of when I became a teacher. I learned how to have confident teacher mode, and so I became a really good public speaker. I'm much better in front of a crowd.
Wow.
I can talk to everybody. You give me a 100, 500,000 people in front of me, put me on a stage, I'll be great. I'll be just fine. I'll be as at home as anything else. You give me, just with like 2 people, and I'll be like, so how are you guys? Um, I just I'm more comfortable in a crowd than I am with individual people. I think because it's psychologically it's easier to get rejected by like 1 out of 1,000 than like one-on-one. So like I'm just sort of standoffish. But anyway, I found out that like a lot of people thought I was like stuck up for that, like because somebody offered to like buy me a drink or something like that, I'd be like, oh no, thank you, I don't drink.
Mhm.
And I was kind of like I didn't really know what to say, and so I found out like it was years after the fact. I wanted to like write a letter to everyone that ever met me and say like, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to be a dick. I'm just kind of I was just real, not comfortable and all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And but anyway, I started learning about the CBT triangle, and what it is let's think of it this way. So picture a triangle in your mind, and at the top of the triangle is what you think, your thoughts. Then on this side of the triangle, these are the things you do. And then on this side of the triangle, these are the things you say. Now, what you think is anything that happens internally,
Mhm.
opinions, thought processes, whatever. What you do is any action you might take, any decision that has an impact on the world or whatever. That's an action. And then what you say is anything you verbalize in any capacity. That could be what you say out loud. That could be what you post online. That could be a text message you send, whatever. Your communication,
Mhm.
right? So the triangle works like this. We think that our thoughts control what we say and what we do, which is true. If I feel this way, I'm going to say this kind of stuff. I'm going to do these kinds of things. What we have to kind of figure out, though, is that those other two actually affect each other equally as well. What you do affects what you think and what you say. What you say affects what you do, what you think, just like what you think affects what you say and what you do.
Hmm.
We think of it as a process of, I have to fix my thinking before I can fix anything else. I have to fix my brain first. No, don't have to. It's actually easier to fix the others. Those will start to impact the other thing. And I can prove it by saying, like, if you say to people, post every day on social media, if you normally post on social media, I hate life, or I hate this, blah, 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 post something like I said, like, I'm really glad you're alive, or I'm glad you're here, or I love this music, something positive, whatever it is, something that some positive energy in there. Even if you're kind of struggling yourself, say that, and watch how, as other people interact with it, you will start to change a little bit of how you're thinking. Not drastically, not overnight, but it will have an impact on how you're thinking. Because as you say, I'm glad you're alive, and other people say, I'm glad you're alive too. Or thank you for that. Or I needed this today. You will feel better. Maybe only marginally, maybe just a little bit, maybe temporarily, but it will affect you. The same way, if you say, and we've seen this, like, how many times have you been on social media and seen somebody say something like, you know what, fuck everybody and fuck this and I hate everything. Like they have some meltdown, and that's fine. Like, I don't begrudge people. I've got friends who have said that kind of stuff, and I don't get mad or take it personally. I understand that. Like, if somebody's saying that, I'm like, well, we're clearly having a moment. So I'm not going to put any stock in this fuck you stuff you're saying. I'm going to assume that you're kind of blowing up, and you just gonna kind of have to, it's just the volcano's got to erupt, and we're going to kind of come back down to earth, and maybe we'll figure out what's happening. But when you say that kind of stuff, now what's the energy you might get back from that? Somebody might be like, well, fuck you too. Or, this, like, it's sort of a, there's not really going to be a great payoff for that thing necessarily. And the same thing is like what you do. It's sort of like, well, I'm lonely. I hate my life. This, that, the other thing. That's what I'm thinking. Okay, what could we do? What could we do about that kind of thing? I'm lonely. Let's say that I'm objectively lonely. Not, if just to clarify for anybody that might be listening, like subjectively lonely would be, we all feel like I'm in a crowd and I still feel horribly isolated. It's a loneliness that is almost a mental feeling of loneliness, isolation.
Yeah.
That would be subjective loneliness. Objective loneliness is like me last Friday night. It's just, well, here I am with my ferrets, rock and roll, baby. Like, anybody want to come watch a movie or something? How about let's play some Nintendo? Whatever. That would be like objective loneliness. So like, what do you do about that kind of, if it was objective loneliness, have you tried to just reach out to somebody? Have you tried to go somewhere or this? And I know like in the pandemic, objective loneliness like went way up.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, just going somewhere can sometimes, kickstart things. At least once in my life, I took a chance, just went somewhere randomly and I made friends with somebody. Just kind of like this, just, if you get me talking about something I'm interested in, my shyness goes away and I will get like, well, let me tell you everything in history about that. So here we go. Did you know? And all this kind of stuff. And I become very animated and you can hear it in my voice, you can see it in my posture that I, get very into it kind of thing. Not everybody has to do that. Right. But that's an action you could take that could affect your thinking. Maybe it doesn't, maybe you come up empty. I've had that happen before. I've felt lonely. I've driven out and just went to places and just didn't happen. And I don't mean like going out to like let me go meet some chicks, man. Like, I mean, just like go meet someone to talk to, like go meet a friend or just be among people watch something like that kind of thing. That's what I'm talking about. And, it doesn't always happen, but at least I tried something. At least I wasn't sitting at home. Like it does still, even just that action still like affects my thinking. And so it seems corny to say things like, positive actions, positive statements can affect your thinking and everything. It seems like such a self-help book thing to say. I'm sorry, the research suggests that it's true. It's just how it is. I wish there was like a cooler explanation. I wish that like Tony Robbins and those people were wrong on that one. They're wrong on a lot of other stuff, but that one is kind of true. You've got your hippy dippy friend that's going to be like, you got to manifest the energy into the world. Like you got that friend that's doing that stuff.
I'm kind of like that.
It's kind of like, dude, you guys can make fun of that, but actually, I would say it a different way. I would say it a clinical way. I would say things like emotion. I would say things like, thoughts, process and everything. But you know what? We're actually talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, and I'll give you an example, like people that, if you look into the history of like magical practices. So, I mean, like,
I was just about to say, I would just phrase it as magic.
Yeah. So if you look into like occult practices now really think about it here for a second, like some of these things like rituals for sexual release, rituals for anger release, sorrow loss, like all these kinds of things. And I think about all these different things I've seen, and many of them are about kind of expelling feelings or changing a certain situation and everything. And part of the practice is sort of purging oneself of emotion, or saying, I will not feel this way, or I'm going to be in charge, or something. You're kind of taking an action and saying things that should affect a state of mind.
Right. You're focusing your will and your intent in order to create change within the world.
Yeah. And so it's this sort of thing of like, that's still within the realm of like, why, you have people who may be on like multiple sides of that. Like I've known some people who think, well, it's a therapeutic thing. Like I've known people that like practice magic, but to them, it's almost like a therapy kind of thing. I've known some people who practice magic and say, no, I believe in 100% that I'm affecting the world and all this kind of stuff. I'm down with whatever you think. For me, from the psychological standpoint, all of it sort of still follows that triangle. Because what you do if you were practicing occult magic or something like that, you're still doing something and saying something to affect how you think.
Yes.
So you're switching the triangle around. You're not letting the thought dominate. You're letting action dominate. You're letting words dominate. And the important thing is that you kind of keep changing that thing. Don't let any one of those things constantly be in charge. But, you know, if one of them is starting to lack, use the others to pick it up. If you are not doing positive things, well, what can we do to impact that? We got to change our thinking. We got to make new decisions. We got to say something. We got to say to ourselves, to the world, I'm going to change. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to get up and whatever. You know, it's that kind of thing. You can use, you know, to borrow that word you were using a moment ago, accountability. We can use the others to help keep each other accountable. What we do, what we think, what we say. We can keep ourselves accountable by keeping those guys in check. If we lose balance with those three, if they're not in alignment, if we want to use the occult language there, if those three things are not in alignment anymore, what I do, say, and think, if there's out of alignment, I'm probably not going to be all that great. I'm not going to be all that well off. But if they're in perfect alignment, you know, I'm of one mind. I'm of one body. I'm of one spirit. I'm of one action, one word, one thought. When you feel that way, you feel very clear. In fact, the people that have felt suicidal, this is going to be very dark, but they've actually felt that alignment. Because if like me, you're sitting there with the gun and you're saying to yourself, I'm going to do this, you're thinking, I'm going to do this, you're about to do this, all this kind of stuff, all three of them are in alignment. There's a weird peace that comes with that. Now, it's a very dark thing. I'm not suggesting that people should do that at all. But what I'm saying is that's why many people, as they're in those moments, they often talk about how calm they feel. At least people that are in alignment, people that are kind of breaking up and crying a lot and all this kind of stuff, that means they're not in alignment. Their thought doesn't agree with it, or their thoughts and actions are doing that, but they don't want to say it, or they don't want to do it. Like something's out of alignment.
Right.
But when we're at peace is when those three things are kind of in agreement, you know?
So it could be dangerous.
It can be, but I'm saying what I'm saying is just sort of that's what that it's not that this practice is like, so, oh, you could use this for evil kind of thing. I'm not meaning that. It's just people that have, since this is about that mental health thing, I know many people may have never felt the peace of all three of those things being aligned in a positive way,
Right.
but they may have felt it in a negative way. They may have felt what it feels like to be thinking negative, you know, saying negative, doing negative, all this kind of stuff. There's no cognitive dissonance. Mm-hmm. Nothing's disagreeing with you. So what we want to try to do is kind of influence things to be a little bit more positive, you know, pick you up and all that kind of stuff. And positivity, of course, gets such a bad rap because it's, you know, especially in the metal world, like, you know, it's very lame and stupid or this or the other thing. It's not a people associate positive with happy. I'm a positive person. I'm not a happy person necessarily. I'm just going to think about what can I do today? What can we accomplish? Who can I help? What can I do? At the end of today, when today is over, when you lay your head down, what'd you do? What's different today? If there's nothing, you know, you want to try doing that. And it could be something as simple as like organize the cupboard. Something is different today. Some tiny little thing. I cleaned out the ferret's cage. I did this. I did whatever. I went to the store. I talked to my friend and helped them through a tough time, or whatever. But that's just it's another one of those important things. And so as you laying your head down right there, if you can think to yourself, hey, I did all these things, those things you did will impact what you're thinking. That's going to impact you the next day. And that's the secret. It's not about being happy. It's just positive momentum. Be better than you were the day before, and surround yourself with people that want you to be better. You know, same thing like with relationships. Don't go for the person just, oh man, they're so hot, they're so this. Like, well, okay. Number one, that's going to fade. So hate to spoil it for you, but we're all going to be ugly. So, but what's somebody like, you know, I've had people ask me for that kind of relationship advice before. And it's like, you got to find someone that challenges you to be better. You know, someone like when you're around them, like if your mind kind of like is on fire and they're doing it for you, man, you know, and they're making you think, I want to be better. Not you want to be good enough for them. That's a different thing. That's negative. Don't do that. But like if they make you like, man, yeah, I want to accomplish something. If they kind of get you fired up a little bit or something like that, like there's a connection. That's somebody you want around. But if they have the opposite impact on you, like you're gonna need to get some distance from them. Because just like the three parts of the triangle affect us, other people affect us the same way.
Right. You're so fucking wise. Give this man a hand. I bet you're a fucking baller ass teacher, dude. I bet your students fucking love you. I can totally feel like the fucking positive energy. And I'm like, yeah, pumped up, changing the world today with Chris on my fucking podcast that like 5 people listen to. But you know what? For those 5 people, it's going to change their fucking world. And then they're going to go out and affect 5 more people. And then that's going to be like the ripple effect of creating, you know, just starting with positive change within yourself. You want to change the world, you have to change yourself first, right? Because everything that you do affects everybody else around you on the daily. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to do something positive with my life, as are you. And together we're like this super fucking power right now that's creating fucking positive change within the fucking world, dude. And that's magic, you know, whether you want to look at it that way or not, that's totally, in my opinion, what it is.
Yeah.
Fuck, this is awesome. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to plug? Particularly?
Well, if anybody is still listening after how long I ranted,
I'm sure there is.
but if I'd be honored if people wanted to check out the Reticent. The Oubliette is a Alzheimer's concept album that I just released in late September. You know, got a lot of really good reviews. Progzilla Radio had it as album of the year. Metal Heads in Germany called it most emotional album of the year.
Fuck yeah.
So I'd love for people to take a listen to it. It means the world to me if people tell me what they think. Even if you don't like it, I appreciate you listening.
Yeah, that's the one that I listened to. Fucking loved it.
Well, I truly appreciate it. And if you want to listen to the one that I was referencing with suicide and everything, it's called On the Eve of a Goodbye. If you visit certain forums, fans of mine debate over whether Oubliette is better than Eve or Eve is better than Oubliette. That's kind of funny to me, but they're just very different things. Fun fact about Oubliette, you'll hear a wind orchestra on stage 5 and 7. Those are my students.
Nice.
The last year I was a band director. That was a 52-person wind orchestra, ages between 14 and 18. And those were my kids. I recorded it actually at the high school. We recorded there. Jamie King came out there, and we had a mobile setup. I actually used this computer that I'm talking to you on right now, and some of this setup. And he brought his mics, and we recorded them in the auditorium of the school. So it's very, very special to me to have my kids on a record with me. That was very exciting. And Xael, Ben, I'm in with Josh Ward from Refume Swell and Brad Paris from Nile, as well as Daniel Presnell and Josh Niemeyer. Sci-fi extreme metal. Josh probably got to be one of the baddest drummers out there right now. An incredible composer as well. He was the drum tech for George Coleus in Nile as well. There's more of the Nile connections, all that kind of stuff. So, well, last time Nile went on tour, Josh was their drum tech and all that kind of stuff.
Nice. And
we just released an album called Blood Tide Rising, which is also kind of like Reticent. You're noticing a theme here. It's also a concept album. This is all sci-fi stuff, lots of lore. Josh has this very deep lore that he created for the world that Xael's a part of, and each of us actually like have our own characters we sort of developed and written a story for and all that kind of stuff. And so like we even have like made up languages and stuff for the worlds and all this kind of stuff. And
yeah,
so if you're into like tribal music meeting symphonic stuff, meeting extreme death metal, it kind of all comes together. Like you mentioned, like Septic Flesh, Dimmu Borgir, a la the Vortex Years, kind kind of thing. Like if that's sort of your bag, you may like it. So check that out. That just came out February on Pavement Entertainment. And I'd love to say we're like going out on tour for it and everything, but it won't be till next year. But we will. And we'll be on the road. And hopefully I'll get this other vocalist job and I can plug that another time.
Yeah. I mean, if
We'll
you're
see.
willing, I'd love to have you on again in a future episode.
You have but to ask. I will
Cool. I definitely will. And I'll definitely just be hitting you up to say hi. And
Hey, do it and check. Let's talk. I notice we have very similar tattoos there.
thrown to the goat.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a Bathory hoe. That's it. Actually, I want to get a new tattoo. I'm gonna get a portrait of Dead.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, fucking beautiful human being. I want to talk to Necro Butcher about his experience with, his friendship with Dead, and get into the whole, all the mental health stuff behind that. So that's like a future goal. Hopefully within the next year it'll pick up. This will gain some momentum and I'll be able to interview like, super hard to reach guys. So we'll see. I feel hopeful. I really feel like this has excellent potential because, like I had mentioned earlier, it's not really like every other music interview podcast. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, you're trying to talk about this deep shit and they're like, hey, so tell us about track number 3 on your latest album. And it's like you want to get beneath the skin of that. You know what I mean? This is why it's called Shedding Skin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's and what's interesting is that most of the podcasts I've been on, and to be fair, like most podcasts I've been on, like the people have been very accommodating with that kind of thing. But they've also talked about like how different it was to talk to me because I didn't want to talk about just the music. I want to talk about what we're really is at the heart of this stuff.
Exactly.
And it was I think just a different thing for them. But most of them were very, very cool with it. And so I think it's very cool and exciting that there's a podcast that just kind of starts off with that, like, plug what you want or talk about what you want. But we kind of want to zero in on these sorts of not necessarily finite issues, but at least this sphere of stuff,
Yeah, exactly. Tell your friends, hype it up, yo.
I'll do it. As soon as it's up, I'll be sure to share it.
Fuck yeah, dude. Alrighty, well, thank you so much for giving me your time. I really, really appreciate it. You were fucking amazing. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You are absolutely welcome. I will talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Have a good evening, my friend.
You too.